Hi, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Boy in a Tree, and today I am going to be talking about the prologue, but I'm just going to do a general summary of what the prologue is about, and the reason why I'm going to be doing that is because in the next video that I'll be posting, I don't know, sometime soon, in the next one of these talking videos, I'm going to be posting a reading of the summary, just a full-on like audiobook style just full-on reading of the prologue all the way through, which I tried to do a little while ago, but I don't know, reading is hard. Reading out loud is hard, and I kind of struggled with it at the time, so I just pushed off for another day. So today, though, I'm just gonna do just a general summary of it, just talking about it. And link down below if you want to actually buy my book, Lu and the Perfect Ending. I'd really appreciate it. So, you know, when I read the prologue, you can read along, or you can read, if you get the book before I do the video, you could read it and be ahead of the game. Anyways, link down below to buy it. I really appreciate it. So, okay, so the prologue. So first, before I say what what happens in the prologue, what is the prologue in general? So the prologue was actually something I wrote before anything else in the story. It was just this vision I had. No, I knew I had a general idea of what the story was going to be, but at this point in the story, the prologue is actually something that happens later on in the story. It's like kind of the climax, or just a really significant part in the story. I took that section of the story and I put it at the beginning in the prologue. Which it actually works out perfectly because, okay, well, what happens in the story is Lucy at this point in the story, has amnesia. She just doesn't remember anything that's happened. She doesn't remember anything. She doesn't remember who she is. She doesn't remember her gender. She doesn't remember her name. She doesn't remember her race. At this point, when she first wakes up in this prologue, and yeah, at this point in the story, she doesn't remember anything. So it's a perfect way for us to just kind of, because then she just slowly, something traumatic had happened to her, and all her memory is gone, and she's just slowly remembering herself, and she sees her surroundings. So it's also, though, a perfect way for us to get to know Lucy, because she doesn't even remember herself. She's remembering who she is. So that's what's happening in the prologue. So it's a good way to just introduce her as she remembers herself. But of course, she is just struggling, and she's trying to remember who she is, and she's looking at the surroundings, which is just a crumbling city. She's in the middle of a dusty gray road, and everything is basically gray because everything is just ash and dust, and the sky is just completely just gray and black and just ash and dust. And she's in the middle of this road, and she looks down the road, and specifically an important part is where she sees on the side of the on each side of the road, the buildings are just, they seem to have like just, they get lower and lower because they're just more and more crumbled to the point of just, I guess, maybe less than a mile in front of her. They get lower and lower to a point where everything is just ash and dust, and it's just a gray, barren field. There's no buildings or anything down this road, and it's just nothing but a field. Because I guess, again, something happened, that maybe some kind of explosion, I don't know, that originated from that field, or that point, where that's the reason why buildings are more destroyed further down than they are there. Anyways, that's what happens later on in the story. But yeah, so something traumatic happened that she has no idea, like her memory was warped. She doesn't remember anything. But then she slowly does, which I describe it kind of in the story like a sink just slowly dripping out just water, which is like her memories. She's just slowly remembering everything, and or just like a computer that's just slowly turning on, but just so slowly. She's just really struggling to remember who she is. She looks at her hands, and she sees her skin is dark. She looks at her feet and just everything, and then she obviously remembers, she sees her her breasts, and she realizes she's a girl. And she sees her skin is dark. She just starts to remember that she's black, she's half Japanese. She starts remembering who she is. She doesn't remember her name yet, though, I think, at this point. She does eventually get the strength, because she's just really weak, too. She's just kind of bloody, and she feels weak. She stands up, and when she stands up, she randomly hears somebody call out her name, or her nickname, Lu. And this, of course, at first, she doesn't know what that means. She looks over, and she sees we are introduced to another character, Alan, who isn't on this cover. He's just another character in the story. And she kind of recognizes him, and this triggers her memory. She remembers her name, Lucy. Him saying it triggers her memory of her name. And then she realizes, though, in that moment, because now at this point, like I said earlier, the sink that was just slowly dripping out the memories is now just, it's starting to really pick up. The sink now is just starting to flood the sink or whatever. It starts to overwhelm her of the memories of everything that starts to happen. She remembers Alan, and she realizes something about Alan. He shouldn't be there. Alan should not be there. So she starts to stumble away from him. Of course, her feet, like I said earlier, her feet are just kind of bloody, and yeah, they're calloused, but they still are kind of in pain, and she struggles, and she really struggles along too, because she ends up stepping on some glass or something at some point in the story. Or yeah, in this prologue, she steps on some glass, and yeah, so she's stumbling away from Alan, but she's struggling. And she starts making her way towards that barren field that with the ash and dust that has no buildings around it or anything, just that barren field. She starts making her way towards that field, away from Alan. But of course, Alan follows her, and he's just telling her that no, things are okay. Everything's okay. I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here. But she just knows something is not right. And at this point, as she's just stumbling along and going towards that field and away from him, she really starts remembering everything. The sink is just completely flooding the bathroom. She is remembering everything. And the thing is, though, it's still overwhelming her, because it's just too much to go from not remembering anything to now suddenly she's remembering almost everything. It's just too much information to even just get through in her head. So it's she's getting overwhelmed. So she's still stumbling along, and then she finally gets to the field, and then she sees a hill with with the tree on it. That's a significant part of the story. So she kind of remembers, she knows that there's something significant about that tree. But yeah, she keeps making her way towards that hill and the tree. But before she can reach it, she can't reach it, though, because there's a chasm. There's this huge chasm that's just, I don't know, probably a mile or so, there's just a gap, it just breaks away, and she can't get across because it goes on miles and miles from her left to right. It's just this huge chasm, and she looks down it, and yeah, it probably goes miles down because she can't see the bottom. It's just darkness. So she turns around just with nowhere to go, and of course Alan this whole time was following her. I think he tries to obviously go to her, but then she steps up to the precipice, just the edge of the chasm, and tells him to stop, or else she'll jump, or she'll drop back. And she just, of course, so he stops. But and she's just, like I said earlier, she's overwhelmed at this point. She sees the city now that, because now it's behind Alan, and she sees just a lot more of it and how it's all destroyed. And she remembers her family at this point, which is actually her dad Ren, and her mother Mary, which she's not on this cover, but that's her dad, though, in the red shirt. It's kind of hard to see in the lighting, but it's a little bright. But anyways, that's Ren. She remembers what happened to them. Oh yeah, and her little sister. She has a little sister, Chloe. She just remembers almost everything at this point, and it's just overwhelming, though, and she can't take it. And she ends up, again, I'm just generally going through. She ends up just dropping back and into the chasm, into the darkness, because she just can't. She can't deal with it. She can't deal with what happens with everything. So she drops down. And that's where it ends. I think it ends on her just seeing Alan, who ran over, and sees, last thing she sees is just Alan looking down the chasm as she falls into the darkness. And that's how the prologue ends in Lu and the Perfect Ending. That's just the beginning of the story. And then of course, and then in chapter 1, of course, it flashes back into the actual beginning of the story. But anyways, that's the prologue. So yeah, link down below to buy the book if you want to actually read that full prologue. Again, I'll be doing a reading of it and just the prologue, not the whole book. I'll be doing a reading of the prologue, so if you want to read along with me. Anyways, I'll be doing that eventually at some point. I'll be putting up that video too. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay connected. Yeah, that's it. Bye.